Hello and welcome back to another episode of Wealthy Expat. This week I've got Alex from Beanstalk, who's the CEO and co-founder of Beanstalk, joining me on the show. How are you, Alex?
I'm amazing today. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to talk.
No problem at all. It's great to have you on the show, and really looking forward to diving into how you work at Beanstalk, how the idea came about, and then talking a bit about the French market. And I think it'll be good for our audience in the UK or in Australia to understand what is happening from an international perspective, and deep dive into what's been happening. But to start off with, how have things been in France post pandemic, you could say, now that we can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel? Is it back to normal in France?
Well, we still have this sanitary pass that you still need to use everywhere you go. So you'd get in a store, you'd get at the restaurant. I was in the UK 2 weeks ago, and I remember being super surprised by how normal life is back to. We're not there yet, but we're kind of close. So 95% normal.
That's good. You're on the way.
Vaccinated.
Yeah, that's the other thing, isn't it? Yeah, at least you're on the right track. I think the UK is quite lucky now in the sense that it feels very normal. You get on the train and you're sardines again. You're all huddled up.
Yeah. I think the main difference there, and Australia has some very deep issues with that as well, is that in the UK, most people have chosen to get vaccinated without being forced to, as opposed to France, where if you wanted to reach these kind of levels, you'd have to put some pressure on the population, which they did, which has worked.
Oh, that's good. At least you're almost there. You're almost there. Back to freedom.
Exactly.
So we're getting there. Well, that's good. To start off with, it would be good to hear your perspective on how the idea of Beanstalk came about, how you decided or why you decided to start the business, and understand about Beanstalk a little bit more, if you don't mind explaining.
So Beanstalk was born just because of my personal experience, really. I was 25 years old when I started. So I had this crazy adventure where every time I started a new job, I just quit after 3 to 4 months. And I started having this little voice in my head saying, Alex, you should be careful with your next job because that might be the last one. So after 6 months, my probatory period was ending, and I was thinking, okay, just in case something bad happens with this job again, just buy a property, just get a mortgage. So I started investing very early, and I got very, very fond of it. So I was really excited when I see the first rents on my bank account, really exciting. And I decided to repeat that operations as many times as possible. So that's basically how it started. And now the real reason why I created Beanstalk was because I had so many friends and family members and friends of friends, and then people I had no idea even existed, starting asking me questions about how to achieve what I had achieved in France, in Paris, really. And that's it, really. And Beanstalk is exactly that. It's a way for retail investors to invest easily in real estate, in buy-to-let investments in France.
Okay, that's interesting. It's I've had a bit of a play around on your website, and especially with the numbers and the cash flow that you put on your on each property listing that's listed on your website. And for people listening, if you want to go check it out, by all means, have a bit of a play around with it. But you can really change every single number and see different returns and change the expectations and keep your expectations realistic, I think, at the same time, which is more important than being, you see this golden ticket and you think that's an awesome opportunity, but sometimes it's better to be a bit more conservative, I think, and you've done it well in the way that it's very transparent. So that's good to see. And when you come to picking properties that you put on your platform, how do you work out that process? Do people approach you and say, "Can you list our property?" Or do you have a kind of an investment standard that you follow? So you're looking for things, certain criteria such as employment or population growth or infrastructure. But how do you pick them?
So very good question. I think that's one of the keys for our current success, but that's also one of the things that might change in the future. Right now, the way we work is we have some criteria that we base our selection on, and we really want to make sure we have the kind of projects that people are looking for. But in the end, that's always the same question with marketplaces, whether you want to answer the immediate needs from your customers that you currently have, or do you want to start putting things in a different perspectives and help to your users see things differently? Do you want to educate them, or do you just want to give them what they want? So right now we just want to give them what they want, and we are focusing on high yield, low budget properties everywhere in France, based on our expectations of rents everywhere. So we only go where we know the rents. That's very key for development.
Exactly. You've done the research into it. That's good. That's interesting to know. And are they mainly apartments as well in inner city locations, or also houses in rural?
No. So in France, the single family rental market doesn't really exist. So that's not really a thing to buy a whole house. Most people wouldn't have even the budget for this. And you don't, I know in the UK, it can be more classic to invest in this kind of properties, or in the US, but in France, it's not even.
It's not. Interesting.
So most people invest in flats. And
that's good. That's interesting to know. I actually was reading some stuff before or prior to this podcast today, and I was reading up on some numbers from the last 12 months, and there was an interesting number that stood out to me from Parisians, the people who live in Paris, that I think it's 47% of them said that they feel they could have had a better lifestyle outside of France during the pandemic. Oh, sorry, outside of Paris throughout the pandemic. And it's, I guess, that's an incredible number for almost 50% of the population.
Is it just Paris, really? I think most big cities have these kind of issues where the prices of real estate have gone so high that most people can't afford to have a garden, have even a balcony or anything that could give them some air. So obviously, during a lockdown, as strong as we had last year, it's very clear that, well, I don't know anyone who was happy not to have a balcony. So that's very easy to say. But now the real question is, to what extent will people move forward with this new perspective?
That's true.
Is it really going to change anything? Remote work, yes, okay, but just now things are getting back to normal. Even when you have now having 1 day of remote work is already a big thing, which means you need to be in the office 4 days a week. Does that mean you can live outside of Paris? I don't think so.
No.
So
make it more difficult. I think it's like you're saying, there's the flow-on effects from people moving outside of these central locations or these capital cities, and from an economic perspective on places like France or anywhere in the world, really, it's going to have a flow-on effect to the workforce and the way.
I guess cities like London and Paris have bigger issues with the fact that they're very far from nature.
True.
They're very far from the sea, very far from mountains. So people start looking at a way to combine what they see as holidays and their professional life. They want to combine both every day. They see themselves at the beach every day. Is that ever going to happen? I don't know, but I think there's an opportunity to invest in coastal cities for sure.
It's true.
Is that going to kill London and Paris? I'm not so sure either.
No, exactly. I think people will be seeking that second home. In a sense, they've managed to have their main residency and then somewhere that they can escape to. And I think in the UK now, it's 1 in 15 people have a second home in the UK. And I think Paris is, from memory, I think Paris is about 1 in 10 people have a second home. So it's at the moment, it's already incredible numbers, but it's
but now I see governments discussing new legislation to limit secondary homes because they can see how it's increasing prices in very small cities where people don't have the means that Parisians have. So there's always going to be some trends. Question will being again for me, to what extent this is going to last. We're also already seeing some decrease in this trend. It's still strong, but it's decreasing. And I think the kind of increase in prices that we've seen over the past few months are not going to be seen again. That's my feeling.
That's interesting. I think it's going to be an interesting 12 months, seeing how it does the next 12 months, how things shape. Obviously, I think most large capital cities that are recognized from a global perspective have performed well. London's performed very well. Paris has performed strong over the last 12 months. Sydney, for example, in Australia, that's seen about 22% price growth in the last 12 months. Massive numbers. So
Sydney is a different kind of city again, because they have the sea, they have everything that you'd look for. They're a coastal city, so I think that's one of the reasons why cities. I'm also looking a lot at the Israeli market, and Tel Aviv has the same kind of situations, and the reason for that being that even if you're in a small apartment, you're still 10 minutes away from the sea.
It's true.
So
it's very true.
Do you want to live that? No, I don't think. But for Paris and London, that's a big frustration. You are actually spending your weekends in a city.
Yeah.
And most people want to see their weekends outside of town. And
yeah, exactly. It's funny speaking to people that live in these environments. So we've lived in Paris, or you've lived in Paris, and I've lived in London, and we've been in the city for so long. And to people from outside of capital cities, they think that's awesome. They get to live in the city. It's, there's always something happening, and you get to a point where you're thinking, oh, it'd be nice to escape to the countryside or escape to the beach. It's needing that change. But how has the French market actually been performing over the last 12 months? Are there any I guess key standout statistics that are worth noting?
So the overall market has increased by close to 10% in terms of prices, but this increase, for the first time in history, I believe, is for the first time led by cities outside of Paris. Usually Paris was the locomotive, taking everyone with them. So Paris was by far the leading region of investments and increasing property prices. Now it's exactly the opposite. We're seeing very small cities going through the roof in terms of prices that don't make any sense for people living in these cities. And this price increase is mostly driven by Parisians moving to new cities. So Paris has been quite flat for the past 12 months. And I think most people are seeing that as proof, as evidence that Paris is kind of dead. But the truth is, prices are so high, and they're sustained super high. I was expecting the price to go down quite substantially, and it's actually sustained at a very high level. So it's still super expensive. Most people can't afford to live in Paris despite the pandemic. So, and I believe that despite all people say, if you had the same prices in France in rest of Paris as you have in Paris, most people will live in Paris.
Really,
it's an issue of price. So that's where things are happening. That's where you create wealth. Most young people especially want to live. So one interesting thing, they had these statistics. Close to 80% of people below 40 want to live in Paris. Most people above 40 want to live outside of Paris. That's
incredible.
That's kind of I think that's the way it should be, really. You don't live in Paris forever. I don't. But you don't want young people to live outside of Paris either.
You're missing on something. Yeah, exactly. Where would be kind of the next most popular spot in France actually at the moment? Would it be places like Bordeaux and Toulouse and Nantes?
There's actually there's a city that is getting very, very popular, and in terms of prices, it's getting close to Paris. It's Lyon.
Right. Okay.
Lyon is kind of our Manchester, so very, very attractive city, very young city, very close. But still has the same issues as Paris. But you still have a very dynamic market there. You have startups, you have a lot of companies. Bordeaux is increasing only because you have the train now that's going to take you to Bordeaux from Paris in 2 hours. So most Parisians have about a secondary city there. It's a Parisian city. It's a Parisian suburb. Most people there, they don't ask the question, where do you come from? They ask the question, when did you arrive? That's
really.
That's super.
It's funny how it's shaping up, but that's interesting to note that Lyon's kind of the next hub, you could say. That's interesting to know. How about the south of France? Actually, I guess it's known for its history and tourism, or the tourist spot, you could say, of the French coastline. But has that been performing well as well?
So it's been one of the regions where prices have increased the most over the last 12 months. And this has also been driven by demand from outside of France. It's always been like that, but I think it's getting more and more popular. Actually, in terms of buy-to-let investments, the south of France is second to the Paris region in terms of number of transactions and volume of deals. But here, the main difference is that this market of buy-to-let investments in south of France is mostly driven by foreigners, whereas Paris is driven by French people. Right. So you have a lot of UK people actually buying in the south of France to do buy-to-let.
I can imagine. It was always my mother's dream to move to the south of France and buy a little apartment or a little cottage and live the French lifestyle. I guess like 3/4 of the UK.
She has 2 million now. She can very easily do that. Very
easy. There's nothing.
Exactly.
You can keep dreaming. That's interesting. That's some good things to note. And I think from an international perspective, it's good to get feedback on how these countries are evolving as well. Countries that, for myself, I have very little experience in the French market, so it's good to understand at a slightly deeper level how things have been going. In terms of your platform and what you've created at Beanstalk, is there any competitors that are making a similar product or have created a kind of the prop tech platform that you've created as well?
So you have people looking to help investors find properties to invest in. Do you have any marketplaces? No. So no one works the way we do, and we are actually not looking at competitors when we look at the French market. We know for sure that the market is enormous and that only a very small share of it is already covered. So we are not even it.
That's good. That's I guess the first in line, you could say. You're in a good position, and it's like I said at the start, I think it's a very impressive platform nonetheless.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, how has the French market kind of responded to the platform that you've created? Have you had a lot of is most of your interest and most of your clients in France, or are they coming from the UK or even Germany, Portugal, Spain, and the likes? But where would you say it's most popular at the moment?
So more than 80% of our users, of our investors, are from Paris, specifically Paris, and they buy anywhere in France, but they're specifically from Paris. 10% of our users are from outside of Paris, but still French, and the other 10% are living mostly in London or in Switzerland.
Okay, that's interesting. And is there any reasoning behind people from Switzerland or the UK purchasing properties in France, or is it just from a diversification perspective? They're trying to buy property in different locations.
So most of them either are French or have a French connection somehow. They've read a lot about the French markets. They always know a lot about France before they join. When I say a lot, I'm not saying that they know how taxation works. I'm saying that they understand that the Parisian market is strong, that it's quite easy to find a tenant, that you can find, for instance, you can find fixed rates in mortgage for more than 20-25 years. So this fixed rate thing in France is very big. It's one of the reasons why this market is so huge. You, as opposed to most markets, I think in the UK or in the US, it's very hard to find a fixed rate for more than 5 years. In France, it's not even a question. You're not authorized to have an interest only or anything that's not fixed. It's not even allowed. So
I actually saw, there was an article I saw last week, I think, about changes that are coming for the borrowing system, I think. And am I right in saying that from next January, you can only have a mortgage that spans out maximum 25 years? Is that correct?
So yes, it's absolutely correct. It sounds like a big announcement, but in reality, most people were already below 25 years. It's very uncommon to borrow for more than 25 years. And if you do buy to let, it's actually 20 years that you'd be looking at. But again, you can very easily convince your bank not to follow this rule. So
a lot of blurred lines.
Exactly, and that's always about the blurred lines. Exactly. How do you navigate this market? And that's one of the rules we have now. How do you make the most of the insight that we have about the market and the banking system to increase the chance of getting better conditions for your mortgage?
That's a good point. I think my next question was going to be, will that affect the French market? But it sounds like it's kind of been, in the background, you could say, for a while now, that it's you guys are used to it. You know what's going to come.
Exactly. There's a lot of it that is already factored in by the market. So they're making big announcements every day about, so now it's going to be 20 years or 25 years if it's a property you're going to live in. It's 35% maximum of indebted rates. I don't know how to call it. So the mortgage rates you can have.
Yep.
Yeah, so 35% maximum. But the truth is, if you look at the numbers, it's already very close to 35 and it's already below 25. So the market has already factored in these changes because we've been hearing about them for the last 2 years. And the market is still very dynamic. Very, it's never been as dynamic as currently is, by the way.
That's good. It's good hearing the perspective of someone on the ground that has experience in it, and then comparing it to the headlines, because I think like we've seen over the last 12 months with everything going on around the world, that the media like to blow some things up, and in this instance I think that's something it was almost a scare headline, you could say, but I think it'll be okay now. I guess my next question, and leading on to kind of one of my last questions, would be around how you think the real estate sector will evolve as technology and innovation continues to advance. I guess we both work in prop tech businesses, and you've adapted the technology aspect to your business quite well, and well at Wealth we've done very much the same. But how do you think that your general high street, someone, a real estate agency on the street, or the general typical real estate agencies that you see, how do you think technology and innovation might shape the real estate world?
The first thing is, I believe, that's my opinion only, but my feeling is that one of the inefficiencies of this market is that you have so many steps in the transaction that you have many reasons not to go through with your project. First problem. And second issue is that you have to reward financially a lot of people for the work they do for you. You have a lot of brokers on the way. And that's part of the inefficiency of this market. That adds a lot to the cost of capital of actually buying a property. When you say cost of capital, most people think about the interest they're going to pay on their mortgage, but they forget about all these fees that they pay to all these people. And that's where I believe technology can help streamline this market, make it make more sense for the final buyer. And I believe that's gonna be the main.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think that's a very good way of pointing it. I think that at the moment with your general process, there's so many steps to the process that for a first home buyer or someone that hasn't been through the process that many times, it can be overwhelming and it can be stressful as well. Especially when you walk into another meeting and you're told there's another €2,000 fee or £2,000 fee, and you've got your solicitor's fees, your conveyancing costs, transfer of title, and before you know it, it's blown up, and you weren't expecting all these costs. But I think
and that's a good point. There are the two issues. One is that you have all these costs, and the second one is that you were not even aware. Most of the time, you just bad surprise after bad surprise, and it gets very annoying.
Exactly. I completely agree, and I think it's all about being transparent in a sense. And I think that a lot of businesses like ourselves are trying to be as transparent as possible when it comes to helping our clients. And like you see on your site, for people listening that check out Beanstalk, you'll be able to see that you can really see all the fees and costs and play around with the numbers that are on there as well to give you a good idea. And much the same with Wealthy as well. But it's I think it's going to be an interesting next 5, 10, 15 years to see how this industry does evolve. And I can remember having chats with old bosses about 5 years ago about how the real estate sector might change. And they were saying things like, one day it'll be robots doing our job. And I don't think we'll quite get to that stage, touch wood.
Not that yet, definitely.
No, you need that human interaction. But it's I think the way in which technology is evolving and shaping, especially for the real estate sector, is really going to help the process. I think make the process better and more efficient and easier. And I'm a big believer that sometimes people put it in the too hard basket when it comes to property investing. In a sense, they don't get their head around it completely, and they try and put it in the bin for 12 months, 18 months, whatever it may be, and come back to it later on in the process in their life. But I think with companies like ourselves, you can really help get these people on the ladder a lot quicker than they intend. So my last question, and this is a question that I ask all my guests that come on the show, and this can be anything, very general question, but what does a wealthy life mean to you?
You didn't share this question with me ahead of this podcast. You should have.
It's on the bottom.
Wow. I think it's anything I say now, I'm gonna regret it, because I'm gonna say, oh man, I should have said that instead, or I did that, or so I'm just gonna say what comes now to my mind. I would say a healthy life is a life where you have time for everything that's not your professional life, and a life where you are extremely satisfied with your professional life. That's what I call being wealthy.
Yeah, I like that. I completely agree. And I think it's having that work-life balance. You've got to have the work-life balance. Otherwise it's you turn into a constant, the corporate kind of spiral, you could say. But it's
but you also have the extreme opposite that I don't like. People saying that to them the only important thing is family and time they spend with their friends, and they seem to forget how rewarding and self-rewarding it can be for life to be professionally successful.
It's true. That's true.
I strongly believe in that as well. You need to be proud of yourself.
Yeah, stay motivated and stay persistent with what you're doing. It's the hard yards are always worth putting in, and you'll get to where you need to be at the end of the day. As long as you put in the work, you keep the motivation there. I completely agree. That's a good point. Well, Alex, it's been a pleasure to get you on the show today. I've really appreciated talking to you, and great to hear about Beanstalk and the market in France and what's been happening in terms of trends in the market. So it's been really good to get you on the show, and we'll have to catch up hopefully in Paris or London next time you're here or I'm there, we'll catch up and go for lunch. But once again, awesome to have you on, and thank you very, very much, Alex. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.